Christmas time is a time of joy. It's a time for love. It's a time to celebrate with those close to us. For others, it's just a date on the calendar. But on Christmas Day, 1929, it was a time for Charles Lawson to murder his wife, 6 kids, and then himself. This is their story. Greetings and welcome to my channel. I'm Sean, and I am here to research and tell you true crime. Um, Welcome back if you're a returner, but if this is your first time or if you're new, then welcome. I hope you enjoy. I try to respond to all comments, so feel free to comment. And if there's things that you want me to look up, go right ahead and state it. I have looked up some of these true crimes are ones that people have suggested to me, and it's kind of cool. It's educational for us all. There are, unfortunately, more non-subscribers than subscribers that watch my videos each week, um, which is not good for the community. Doesn't help me out. So, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It really does help me out, and I am striving to be a better creator each time I do this. So the more response I get, the more I strive to do better. So let's begin with our story. Now, I'm going to state that there might be some trigger warnings. I try to briefly go over the horrific details because I don't, well, one, YouTube doesn't want me to explain them into great detail, but also I'm not really all about the crime. I'm more about the victims. So there might be some triggers in this. He did kill his family, so be prepared for that. In 1911, Charles Lawson married Fanny Mannering. During their marriage, they had 8 children. Unfortunately, their third child, William, died at the age of 6. They said because of pneumonia. I almost said that with a P. Okay. Because of pneumonia. In 1918, the family moved to Germantown. I've heard it Germantown and heard it as Germantown, but it's T-O-N at the end. So Germantown area of North Carolina. It's just north of Winston-Salem. I think that's the name of the town, is Winston-Salem. I'm assuming it's 2 towns that joined together and they just joined the word. I'm not sure. I don't know much about North Carolina, so I'm sorry if you're from there and I'm screwing it up. I really do apologize. I've heard it's a beautiful state and I'd love to visit it sometime. Having worked with his brothers, they were tobacco farmers, but they're like working for other people. By 1927, he had finally saved up enough money that he could get himself his own farm, and he bought that on Brook Cove Road, which is kind of north of Germantown. I'm sure I showed a map. And just before Christmas of 1929, Charlie loaded up his family. They traveled to Winston-Salem, and there he bought them new clothing and had them dress for a family portrait. He said that this was all part of his Christmas surprise. this was an extravagant purchase for the time, especially for a working class family. Uh, some say that this was a premeditated act because he knew what he was going to do and just wanted to do one good thing before he did what he did. Others said that it was just something that he wanted to do. But the thing is, I mean, he was kind of poor. It cost a lot to do all this. So I waited to talk about who was in the family until I could show this photo. In the photo, from left to right, is Arthur, who was 19, although I've also found news saying that he was 16, so he's between the age of 19 and 16. His sister Marie, who was 17, Charlie, who was 43, and Fanny, who is 37. In her arms is Mary Lou, who is 3 months old. In the front, from left to right, is James, who is 4, Maybelle, who is 7, Raymond, who is 2, and Carrie, who is 12. On Christmas Day, Arthur had been hunting rabbits and ran out of ammunition. He decided to walk to town to get some more. But I also read that Charlie sent him to town to get some supplies. Around 1 in the afternoon, Carrie and Maybelle were setting out to go to their aunt and uncle's house. I don't know, to visit, or it didn't say why. But as they were walking by the tobacco barn, Charlie stepped out, lowered a 12-gauge shotgun, and shot both of them in the chest. He then bludgeoned them with a hoe handle to make sure that they were deceased. He went to the house and saw Fanny on the front porch peeling potatoes. He shot her where she sat. From inside the house, Marie screamed and James and Raymond tried to hide. But Charlie entered the house, shot Marie, and then quickly located the boys and killed both of them. He then went into the bedroom where Mary Lou was sleeping in her crib and bludgeoned her. Charlie then went to the woods, and hours later, he shot himself. The bodies of the family were found with their arms crossed and a rock under the head. For the 2 girls in the barn, he put a rock under their head like as a pillow. In the house, though, he did cross their arms and put pillows under their head. I'm not sure how this happened, but people had already heard of the murders and were gathering at the home when they heard a single gunshot. Arthur was there, and him and a police officer ran to the location of the gunfire and found Charlie's body leaning up against a tree. He had positioned himself to shoot himself in the heart using a stick to trigger the gun. Like I said, this was hours after he did that to the rest of his family. So I guess Arthur probably came home, saw it, and called. I got people to help. I don't know. He had to have been pacing there for a while because they said that it was all trampled around the tree as if he kept walking around. They found a letter to his parents that he had written. I could not find anywhere what was written on that letter, so that's unknown. But he also had a scrap of paper in his pocket, and on that scrap it said, "Blame nobody but I." So, I mean, he was taking full responsibility for it. Now, there's many rumors on why Charlie murdered his family. One is that he suffered a head injury when they were renovating the cabin, and that caused brain damage. But apparently, they did an autopsy and showed that there was no abnormalities. Another thought was that Charlie didn't even do it. It was somebody in organized crime, uh, part of the sharecroppers that came there, and he knew something or the family knew something, and they were murdered to keep him quiet. Yet a different theory, which I saw multiple talks about, is that Charlie had impregnated his daughter Marie. A book published in 1990 named White Christmas, Bloody Christmas claimed that relatives, including Stella Lawson and Jetty Lawson, discussed with Fanny about how she was concerned with Charlie's interest in Marie. Jetty died in 1928, so Fanny had apparently had this suspicion for at least a year. On top of all of that, there was a close friend of Marie's named Ella May that stated Marie told her a few weeks before Christmas that she was carrying her father's baby. She also told her that both of her parents knew. So no one's ever going to know for sure what was Charlie's reasoning behind this. He could have been just covering it up so the people wouldn't see the shame, or he could have just had some mental problems. Everyone that the Lawson knew came to the funeral. There is about 1,500 people in attendance that knew the Lawsons from the area. 7 coffins were lowered into the ground in a small cemetery just outside of town. It was the Browder Cemetery, where they're buried on December 27th, 1929. From what I could tell, is the Broward Cemetery is a family cemetery, not the Lawson's family, but another family's cemetery, and it's really small and private. Besides friends and family, there were also 5,000 outsiders that came to the funeral. They were drawn purely by curiosity. For 3 miles down the road, cars sat parked on both sides of the road. They walked all the way there just with hopes to glimpse a body. Men, women, and children, I mean, even little babies, were at this funeral hoping to see the deceased. That's disturbing to me, but it gets even worse. After the funeral, many would drive by the house or even visit the Lawson's cabin. Charlie's brother, Marion, saw this as an opportunity and thought about Arthur's future. So he started charging people 25 cents a person to see the house. Of course, Arthur ended up dying at the age of 31 from a car accident. Now, his gravestone, this is weird. His gravestone said he was born in 1911 and died in 1944. But there are multiple sources that say, hey, that gravestone's wrong. He was actually born in 1913 and died in 1945. I guess I'm not sure why they would have made such a gravish error on the tombstone, but record keeping was shoddy back then. So there could have been errors on it. Now, going back to what Marion was doing with the showing about the house. The murders had left enough blood on the cabin floor that people could scoop it up as a keepsake. People were putting it into jars as a keepsake for themselves, going, "Hey, look, I got Fanny's blood." Um, they also stripped the tree that Charlie was leaned up against when he killed himself. It was all about getting a souvenir from the event. And people pass these down as heirlooms. I don't know, that's kind of morbid. Okay, not kind of, it's extremely morbid. At the peak of the tours, more than 500 people a day would visit this home. Many of them would pocket keepsakes. Um, a lot of times they would take a raisin off of the cake that Marie was making for Christmas Day, and she covered it with raisins, and people just kept picking raisins off of it as a keepsake. Some scooped up the blood, some took parts of the house, parts of the crib. Um, in 1930, so a year before Arthur died, the family's belongings were auctioned off. It was the weapons that got the most money. It was like a bidding war to get their hands on this gun. I don't know, that it's extremely disturbing to me. Of course, I do true crime, so because that's disturbing to other people possibly. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd really want a weapon that killed other people just as a keepsake. The murders inspired 10 different songs, 2 books, and a movie. The most predominant thing I found about it was the song Murder of the Lawson Family. It was recorded by the Carolina Buddies in 1930. And then it was later covered by the Stanley Brothers in 1956. You know, it's a sad story to start the Christmas season off with. You know, a father is supposed to be the family protector, the provider, the hero of the family. I guess maybe Charlie thought he was protecting his family by trying to cover up Marie's pregnancy. But I guess no one's ever going to know. So I hope that they'll rest well. Thank you for watching. And since today is December 4th, I would like to wish my father a happy birthday. Speaking of dads, he would have been 81 today. He left me and my family 3 years ago. And it's something that I have trouble coping with. You know, this story kind of tapped those feelings that I have for my dad, because he would have done anything for me and my mom, as I would do anything for my kids and my wife. And my most predominant thing that I think of is that Charlie had demons that kind of haunted his mind. You know, mental illness is not a new thing. A lot of people have it, and a lot of people need help. So, happy birthday, Dad, wherever you are. Until next time, love you all. Be good to yourself and to others. Bye.